All right. Welcome to Shabbat Lounge. We appreciate you listening and joining us today. This is Matt, joined in studio with
Jake.
And we appreciate you coming along for the ride with us today. And as always, we appreciate any comments, likes, subscribes. We appreciate all of those who have gone in and done those things and given us 5-star reviews and iTunes, but we're in other places like Podbean and Spotify and YouTube, and we have a website called Shabbat Lounge. You can find us all over the place, and a Twitter account and a Facebook account.
All over the socials and the interwebs.
And just new, a TikTok.
Ooh.
So I'm venturing into that. But anyway, we appreciate you stopping by.
And stay tuned for more.
Well, today I'm joined in studio with Jake. Jake, how's it going?
Going well.
Good. So, well, this podcast is going to become dated quickly, but clearly everyone in the world, what are they talking about these days, Jake?
I think there's a rampant sickness happening, I've heard from the news somewhere. I've heard it at the water cooler, as it were.
Yeah, at the water cooler. So proverbial water cooler. So yes, we have all heard about this by now, and I'm sure you know what we're referring to, and it may have affected you in some ways and how you work, and we were just going to talk about kind of our perspective. So I am very fortunate enough to be a part of a line of work that's considered an essential service, and I am work for a lawn care provider, and we do lots of things to take care of people's turf, and they want us to keep the weeds down and pest controlled, and those are considered essential services. So that's good for our business, and so I worked all week, and so I typically work from home, and I try never to go to the office, but sometimes I have to. And so I only had to go to the office one time this week, and it's because I needed something, and otherwise I wouldn't have even gone then. And but I have noticed something, being out and about. I've seen a lot of families together. I've seen people walking as families, not just individuals, but whole families on bike rides. I've seen a lot of kayaks out. And just a lot of people outside in general. And so, Jake, kind of what have you experienced?
Well, I do want to point out that a lot of people might think that taming the turf is not very essential, but, being transplants to Texas, I understand that, because you guys got stuff in this grass that'll kill you. So, yeah. Whatever those Pokeballs are, they hurt.
Yes.
But anyway, so for me, I've been able to work from home. I started working from home last week. So I've been home for a while now, and serving out my quarantine, as it were. And we homeschool, so I get to spend the day with the family, which is nice. Just, not that we get to run around and play games all day, but just to be in the same house is nice. But we got to get out to the park the other day, which was nice, because we typically during the week we don't really get time to do that. And but yeah, same as you, there were people kayaking and boating, and lots of people walking around at the park. What was neat was, interesting was the playground area was like roped off with the caution tape, and I was like, man, I gotta take a picture of that, because you don't see that. So, but yeah, walked around the park, and yeah, it was, families bike riding and walking in the park and stuff. So
yeah, that's definitely a positive. And one guy this week told me, he's like, Matt, I really like working from my house. And he's like, he was an architect, and he's like, I don't know that I'm going back to an office. He's like, in fact, his exact words were, where has this been my whole adult working life? And he said he's a millennial, and he said some of the older guys in his office were like, oh man, we really like being together and seeing everybody. And he's like, I don't get anything done.
Yeah.
And so I understand that too, because when I'm in the office full of people, I'm a people person, I talk. And so it's really hard for me not to talk, and I will not get anything done sometimes because I just talk.
Yeah, I heard similar kind of situation from one of my coworkers who was like, I'm working from home, and right now my daughter's sleeping in my lap, and it's hard to type with one hand, So he was kind of going the route of, he might be able to get more work done at the office because, taking care of the kids at the same time is tough.
Yeah.
For a lot of people. But the other side of that is if your kids are at school or something like that, yeah, you could get a lot done at home without having the distraction of, crazy cubicle mates or whatever, cubicle neighbors bothering you all the time.
Yeah. In fact, my boss one time said that he had a job, and he would put a sign on his chair that said, don't talk to me. I will be free. I will take a break at this time, and that is the time you can talk to me if you want to talk to me. And I will talk to you, but I have 10 minutes, and when the 10 minutes is up, I got to get back to work. And, and he said people pretty much left him alone, and he also got his work done and was leaving earlier than everyone else. And so, I mean...
And no one talked to him on his 10-minute breaks.
Yeah, people left him alone because they're like, whoa, what's wrong with that guy?
The poor lonely guy at the office. He was like, hopefully someone will come talk to me in my 10 minutes off, but no one ever did.
But definitely the whole thing is pretty interesting. And, and I've gone through a wave of emotions with it, at one point, and I was pretty upset, and because I'm like, I'm an American. That flag stands for freedom, as the hawk cries, which it's supposed to sound like an eagle, but they use a hawk crying. I don't know.
It's because everything's a facade.
Yes, right? Yes. And so, but I kept thinking about that, and it made me mad, and I'm like, this isn't right, and we're giving up our freedom. And I think there's an argument to be made there.
There is an element of that.
So
yeah.
And so I think a lot of people probably share that, but I'd say a lot of people. I think a lot of people in the Torah community probably kind of share some of that in certain segments of the population. But I feel like most people out there, I don't think they get it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are happy to just do what they're told.
Yeah.
By the all important. Well. Government is God now. Government is God now. So you need someone telling you what to do, and it's sadly in the case of just the direction societies go, it turns into government being in charge of your whole life, and then when they say jump, you say
that's right.
The old cliche.
And I think too, most people are like, I've got electricity. Got air conditioning.
I got toilet paper.
I got toilet paper. Got a little food. Netflix works. Okay, this isn't too bad. The government's going to give me money. Okay, I just raised like $500 a kid and $1,200 per taxpayer.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, that's crazy.
Yep.
So, but it is a surreal thing to witness all this, and I think there are a lot of people that are just good soldiers, and they just go, oh, okay. And a lot of people heard what they heard when they said, because I went and read the fine print, because I'm a nerd like that, and I want to know, what does the law actually say? And so I went and looked at these different counties and looked at what they were saying, and when I read it, I came to the conclusion, I was like, this is so vague, I can pretty much go do whatever I want to do.
Yeah.
And and it's written in such a way where it is very vague. But most people are like, oh, I can't leave my house. I got to shut the door. Don't let the evil germs in my house.
Right.
I'm never leaving.
Right.
But don't you think that's the way a lot of people took it?
I think that's the aura out there is that direction. I mean, yeah, I made the quip earlier about being in quarantine. It's not the quarantine you get from the movies. It's well, I'm not going into the office essentially. I mean, any time you can go to the grocery store, that's not really a quarantine, I don't think.
Yeah.
And you can, and something that's kind of odd to me is you can go to like a fast food place and go through the drive-through. That's weird to me.
It is.
It's like
it is.
They're worried about the germ spreading, but somehow they don't spread that way, I guess.
And they don't require them to wear gloves and face shields and.
Yeah.
I could kind of get it if there was a bunch of gear that they required them to wear, but I didn't see anybody wearing anything like that.
Right.
And so
now, on the other side, I don't. I'm not begging for the government to force people to do that.
No.
But it's just interesting. It's just interesting that no one's really. It's like they don't
question the logic.
Thing.
It's
right.
like, yeah, don't worry about that. Don't pay attention to that. And what's considered essential is a wide range of businesses.
Yeah.
And so basically, non-essential businesses, like if you had a record store, well, I guess you're done.
Yeah.
You can't work, or a bookstore. Those are all considered non-essential. But it is strange, and you do wonder how many businesses are going to survive.
Well, all you need is to go to this website and print out your paper that says, sign your name on it and say you're essential, right?
That's right.
I mean, how is that not going to get abused? I mean,
yeah. Well, and I went to one business that I was wanting to purchase something at, and they were a non-essential business, and I saw a car there, and I called them, and they're like, yeah, and I was like, are you open? And they're like, yeah, for the case by case. And I was like, okay. I was just curious. He's like, and I told him what I was looking for, and if he would have had it, he would have had me come right in.
Yeah.
And so I mean. People have to make money. They have to survive.
Yeah.
And the government giving you $1,200, that's not. People aren't going to survive.
You can't survive on
one
that,
check.
Right?
You're like, here you go.
Yeah.
One check. And if you think of it, do the math on that. Was it 2 trillion, 4 trillion? What was it?
2 trillion.
2 trillion. How much is that per man, woman, and child in the U.S.? That's a pretty good. That's a pretty big chunk of change.
Yeah.
For every person,
right.
if you divide it by 300 million.
Yeah.
And just give me that. Now we're talking.
Yeah. Yeah, and you notice Bernie might as well drop out of the race. He's got everything he wants now.
Yeah, done.
So,
but
that was quick, right? I mean,
no.
It's just. Put the word crisis in front of it, and then you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, you get a free checkbook. It's a blank checkbook.
Yep.
And just write the check.
Yeah.
No thought to who pays for it, really.
So we're kind of making his case for him.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the Trojan horse of it all. It's like, yeah, one of the things I heard early on was, while all this is going on, what's the other shoe to drop? What's going on behind the scenes? You're not.
A volcano went off today.
Who cares?
A big one,
right? Yeah. Apparently that doesn't matter.
It was big though.
Oh yeah, I did not hear about it.
So, but yeah, you wonder what's really happening that we're not supposed to pay attention to.
Yep.
So, but in this, I did get convicted about a couple of things. I listened to some different people, and I also learned I had to quit listening to so much of this kind of talk, which you're listening to right now, and we're promoting to listen to the show more.
Well, we know this is the content people are seeking, right?
Yes, this is the alternative voice to the alternative.
Yeah.
So, but I had to stop listening, because in my job, my car is my mobile office pretty much, and so I listen to a lot of radio, talk radio. I listen to everything, and at first I was like, I'm so interested in all this, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, the world, we're gonna die. We're all gonna die. And
it's very easy, yeah.
You have
when
to
everyone's
stop.
saying that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, but somebody really convicted me about, that this virus is from Yahuwah. And, that this virus wouldn't exist. It wouldn't be allowed to happen if it didn't have his express permission and, to operate. And regardless if it's a real thing, a fake thing, whatever it is, it has his permission to operate and do its thing. And it kind of made me think, somebody pointed this out, that in Leviticus 13 and verse 5, it talks about on the seventh day the priest is to examine. They're talking about these sores they've got on the skin, and if it hasn't spread, he's in quarantine for 7 days. And so in verse 4, there's another 7 days, because Jake earlier asked about 14. Well, there's your 14.
Right.
So, it's a biblical principle to quarantine for 14 days, and it's something to pay attention to and something to take note of, that the world has ignored him so long. It's basically like he's going, hey, remember, I have told you about how to quarantine and do these things, and now the world is being forced to put a biblical principle in place, which is interesting.
Yeah, I wonder if you went through different laws in the Torah, what could be like a natural thing that Yahweh would use to force people to keep that command. You know what I mean? A sickness makes you keep these commands for sure. But yeah, I would just be interested to maybe look a little deeper and see what other commands he could force us into, just to get us onto the right path.
Well, got it. Another one. This evening, right now, for most people, we call this Shabbat, and people are in quarantine, and people
can't go to work.
Can't work, and so he is forcing a lot of people that have never observed a Shabbat to observe a Shabbat. And so I think that's really interesting. And I do think we have to be looking for opportunities to start talking to people about these things and pointing them out to them and having them kind of realize it, because people also have more time on their hands. Maybe they'll look some of these things up. Yeah,
that's one of the things about this that has been on my mind and my wife. And, we're like, all the time people are like, I'm too busy at work. You try to talk to people about are you reading your scripture, and it's like, well, I'm so busy with, sports with the kids and this and that and work. And it's like, people are being forced into a position where they have the opportunity to, if they'll take it, to go and read scripture and do those studies they've been wanting to do. And I'm just hoping, and we've been praying, that people actually take that opportunity that's been given to them to go seek those things out that they've been on their mind and they haven't had a chance to look at.
Yeah.
Or taken the chance to.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's a good thought. So if you've never looked at Leviticus 5, you should look at that.
Leviticus 13.
Sorry, Leviticus 13. I did say it right the first time. And then I want to also look at Matthew 15. And so in Matthew 15, you've got this scripture where the Pharisees are looking at Yeshua's disciples, and they're questioning things that are happening. And so in 15:1 and 2, it says, some of the Pharisees and teachers of the law came to Yeshua from Jerusalem and asked, why do your disciples break the tradition of the elders? They don't wash their hands before they eat. Yeshua replied, and why do you break the command of Yahweh for the sake of your tradition? For Yahuwah said, honor your father and mother, and anyone who curses his father and mother is to be put to death. But you say that if anyone declared what might have been used to help their father or mother is quote unquote devoted to Yahuwah, they are not to honor their father and mother with it. Thus, you nullify the word of Yahuwah for the sake of your tradition. You hypocrites! Isaiah was right, because he prophesied about you, and then he just rips them. And I'm sure they were quiet after he tongue lashed them. But what were you saying earlier about the washing? I thought you said something interesting.
Oh, about how they don't use. They never tell you to use soap with the washing. You just wash with water.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things that we had discussed. And then another thing is that some people might take this and go, well, see, I don't have to wash my hands.
Yeah.
And clearly, Yeshua's not saying don't wash your hands.
Mm-hmm.
He's putting, he's putting the command in its place,
mm-hmm.
right? Prioritizing what you should be worried about, and bringing traditions of man to the level of Yahweh's commands. He's not saying don't wash your hands.
Mm-hmm. But yet, it does make you think that they didn't wash their hands before they ate.
And maybe, he didn't hear.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of interesting and what do we do today? We wash our hands before we eat. And so we follow, still to this day, we follow a Pharisaical tradition of the elders.
Yeah.
Do we?
Yep.
And so I don't know, you would have to dive in a little bit deeper. Was that a ceremonial thing that they did in a certain way? I've heard that before. There was a certain way they stuck their hands in, kind of like a surgeon where they have their hands up and it drips down their elbows.
Yeah.
There's all these
in a very annoying way.
Yes.
Anyone who's ever washed dishes by hand knows that when the water's running down your elbows, for some reason you're angry now.
Yes. Not
like water should not be running down my elbow right now.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it doesn't mean don't wash your hands, but bringing it to the level of this is, hey Matt, you didn't wash your hands, you can't eat with us.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you had just there's a case to be made, but
it always goes there, doesn't it?
Every single time.
But I did hear people going so far to, like a county judge who I will not name said something about, if you see people in the park and they're too close together, you tell them to separate. I'm like, really? Who's doing that? You want to get in a fight? What are you doing? Some people aren't gonna take kindly to that. They're not gonna be like, oh, okay, sir, yes, we will. Whoa, we'll step back.
Yeah, you get a lot of that in Texas. People just following right along with what some rando walking by says for them to do.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was pretty interesting that he said that. But just the people have gone so crazy. But the whole washing of hands is interesting too, because in the Bible we have in the Torah we have a lot of examples of them washing their hands with just water.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't see a lot of talk of soap.
No.
And which is interesting. So
I'd like
something to think about.
I'd like to see the scientific analysis of washing your hands with soap versus water. I know everyone says it.
Dirt.
Or dirt, right?
I mean,
yeah.
That's how. I mean, I've done it before. Yeah. I've had stuff on my hands.
Ashes from a fire.
But I've done it with just dirt too.
Yeah.
Just plain dirt. And the friction of that dirt, can get nasty stuff off your hands that just plain water wouldn't get.
Right.
And ashes is the same thing. And even rocks, just something to kind of give you friction.
Yep. And then, it's, but I'd like to see show me the microscope on someone's hand. Right, show me.
I think that was in a movie, wasn't
it? Not the kind of movies I was watching, I guess.
Okay.
From a time gone by, apparently.
Yes.
But I just don't know if there's like a study out there where they show you. I know they have the animations of, these are big germs.
Have you seen the one with the gloves?
No. But then, okay, show me the water and soap washing these germs off of my hand when I'm, and maybe that exists. Mm-hmm. I'm saying, go ahead and prove me wrong or right. I haven't really taken a position on it. I'm just saying. So, one of the things I want to say this before I forget again, because it keeps popping into my head and then I keep forgetting it, but you were talking about keeping distances at the park.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I was at a local store the other day, and I thought this was hilarious. So I'm getting my oil changing supplies because I'm at home. What else am I gonna do? I will just go change my oil. But so I go to the checkout counter, and they have blue tape, like painter's tape, on the floor at what I assume is 6 feet apart. It's, so you're keeping your distance, but the lane I was in, the lane right next to it was open also, and the lanes are like 2 feet apart. So I'm standing right next to a guy, but I'm 6 feet behind the guy in front of me. So it was like, I don't think that worked out too well. Why don't you like space your tellers out a little if that's what you're gonna try to do? I just thought that was funny.
What is that called, that term for the space we're supposed to give each other?
Social distancing.
Social distancing, yes. Who ever heard of social distancing?
You gotta make up things as they come. If you're not making up some new phrase, you're not doing it right.
And so I did find, speaking of, what you just were saying made me think of this guy who made this thing. So he's some Italian man, and he made his own disc that he inserted himself in to keep the proper social distance from everyone else. So you could do that.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. He made himself a social distancer. Yes. Although I think he'd have a hard time getting into doors, maybe. He might. He'd have to like tip it.
He might.
But that's interesting. Good thinking, innovation.
But you're right about the logic. If you start looking around at some of these things, there's some stuff that doesn't make sense. And what you said, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. But you were talking about washing your hands with
I Googled
some aggregate.
I Googled an article while you were, and this is from the Hartford, was that Courant? And
I thought that was a fruit.
Yeah, I thought so too. I'm all of a sudden now I'm hungry. The 15-second friction rule is what they're talking about. Even first graders are taught the importance. Friction is the rubbing together of your hands, okay? Not just the water and the soap, which gives a good whack at the germs you picked up on doorknobs. So it's interesting. So there you do see a lot of references. It doesn't take much Googling, and let's just, for instance, in this one article, friction is used 5 times in the article. So they clearly admit friction.
And they talk about it's the friction that's removing the germs.
So just for reference, soap used 3 times, friction used 5 times.
There you go.
So, and that's in one, and then somebody else did it here, and so soap is used 12 times, and friction here is only used twice, so there went that theory. But so anyway, it's worth investigating for sure on your own, and you will find that when they talk about cleaning your hands, they do talk about the friction. So
I am not a doctor.
Yes,
just for the record.
Nor do you listen to this show for medical advice or financial advice,
right,
or legal advice,
or any advice whatsoever. In fact, you don't even listen to this show. So, no.
Wait a minute, you do listen to this show,
yes,
and we appreciate it. Thank you. Glad you're here today, and I know that this has been worth every second. So
we'll cut that in post.
Yeah, no, we won't. So, and then in Luke 11:37, I'll kind of get us back on the train track again. So it says, when Yeshua had finished speaking, a Pharisee invited him to eat with him. So he went and reclined at the table. But the Pharisee was surprised when he noticed that Yeshua did not first wash his hands. He didn't say his hands. It just said wash before the meal. And then he goes on in 39, and this is the meat of the topic, where he says, basically, now listen, you Pharisees, they clean the outside of the cup and dish, but inside you're full of greed and wickedness, you foolish people. Did not the one who made the outside make the inside also? But now is for what is inside of you. Be generous to the poor, and everything will be clean. So, Jake, what are your thoughts about that there?
My initial thoughts are that they had better chairs at their dining tables than us. They got recliners at their table.
Mm-hmm.
But
sounds good.
Other than that, yeah, really Yahweh's in charge, and if you're gonna get sick, Yahweh will let you get sick. I think we lose the idea of the first cause. There was a guy that I did Bible study with back in Pittsburgh that he said one of the things he would say, and it stuck with me, was remembering the first cause. And he had some rough things happen in his life, and he always turned to Yahweh in the midst of it, and it was good for me to see that from someone. And he went to Job a lot, and the one thing he said was remembering the first cause. So he gave this example of how if you have a newspaper and you swat the dog on the end of the nose, and then they'll bite the newspaper, but the dog would be better off to bite you because you're swinging the newspaper at him, right? Mm-hmm. Job says, shall we accept good from Yahweh and not evil, right? And that's true. I mean, Satan only had the power over Job that Yahweh gave him. Same with Pilate and that kind of thing over Yeshua, right? So, but in this case, yeah, they're so concerned about washing their cups and dishes, whereas they're forgetting the more important command of being generous to the poor and loving your neighbor.
But my dishes are clean.
Yeah,
so.
Which that's important. I mean, I like clean dishes.
Yeah, I don't want to go to your house and eat off of dirty dishes. Right. That's for sure. So, nor do I want to go to your house or to a establishment that's serving food and see the guy come out of the restroom and go right to my food. I never like to see that, even if he's washed his hands and thoroughly. But I'm still like, ooh, I don't know now.
Right? You never know. So, there's something about it.
Yeah. But definitely, to me, this is the most important piece of what we're seeing now is people need to be way more worried about what's in their heart and what's happening in their heart than they are the physicality of this coronavirus. Yeah. Because this coronavirus, I mean, if everything is true, it could kill us. For sure. It does appear that seems to be happening worldwide, and it's a possibility. But we should be way more worried about our soul and our position with Him, and
how we're treating others.
Yeah. And I do think that that's a message we need to get, and we need to tell people around us, and because a lot of people are afraid, and so we need to, there are people that we work with, there are people that we're related to and friends with. We need to tell the people that are afraid to not have fear about this, and to help them understand that we don't fear these things, because when we perish, we win. Yeah. And it's sad, and it's an unfortunate thing for people that are left behind, but you win. So, but it's definitely an interesting thing to think about for sure, and worthy of. And there was something else that I was thinking about there, unless you had something else.
No, go ahead.
Well, I'm trying to recall what it was.
So you want? Okay,
I'm looking for some.
The filler. Yes, you're looking for the filler.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Line.
No, and everything will be clean for you. So that doesn't mean go eat the pork. So, yeah. Just for the record.
Yeah, that's right. The thing that I was thinking about is I've heard a lot of people, I think, kind of have this attitude that, I'm a Christian. I do good stuff. This coronavirus, it's not going to get me. It can't get me. And I think that just like what you talked about with Job was a good guy. and but bad things happen to him, and I think it's a mistake to, and I think that's part of where prosperity gospel and things like that kind of definitely don't help anything, because people get that in their mind that I believe and I do some good stuff, so stuff isn't going to happen to me. But that's just not true, because I believe Job was a pretty decent, honorable man, and a lot of bad stuff happened to him.
Yeah. Yep. And another thing on that, this is something that I hear a lot out of the Torah community, is this leaning on Deuteronomy 7:15. It says, and Yahweh will take away, it's talking about when you go into the land and you be obedient, right? It says, and Yahweh will take away from thee all sickness, and will put none of the evil diseases of Egypt, which you know, upon you, but will lay them upon all them that hate you. And so people will look at that and they'll say, I'm keeping the commands now. Why am I getting sick? And it's like, we ruined that already. They already messed that up. And now we see diseases come upon his people because they screwed it up. So going back to keeping Torah doesn't keep you away from disease. Because that, you've already broken it. So that time will come when the disease won't fall on you. Yeah. But that's not right now. Yeah. We're scattered and still putting up with the plagues that deservedly were put on Israel for disobedience.
Well, speaking of scattering, I feel like it's time to pull our shotgun approach back together.
Sure.
Into one finite point. And we were talking about it, and one of the things that I've definitely come to the conclusion of, that this is it's a wake-up call for people on lots of levels. It's a wake-up call for people to realize that their own mortality is something they have to face. And it's a wake-up call that society and the world can change quickly. And it's a wake-up call for those of us that have been into, kind of being prepared, that this stuff can happen quickly.
Yeah.
And you can see how quickly the people turn into animals and over toilet paper. Who knew?
Right.
Who knew toilet
that
paper
was the thing?
Uh-huh. And so, yeah, good luck finding it, And I have seen several semis this week, in the last 2 weeks, where they'll have a big, 40-foot flatbed semi, and they'll have one pack of little tiny Charmin toilet paper in the middle of the flatbed with a big truck ratchet strap on it, and they're going down the road. And I laugh every time. So
I have not seen that. That's hilarious.
It does kind of make a statement.
Yeah.
And then I've heard a local, I think he's a plumber, which is ironic. Not really. But I think it's a local plumber that said he had a radio ad that was like, if you call us by such and such, when we come to your house, we'll bring you a pack of toilet paper.
Oh, I saw someone, if you fill up with gas at their gas station, they were giving out a roll of toilet paper.
So you wonder if and when they do have sporting events again, will they have a toilet paper cannon? And instead of doing T-shirts, it'll be like a roll of toilet paper.
Although T-shirts just as useful for the same purpose.
It is, yeah. So one of the things we were going to do, and is I was going to make a little marketing post of lamb's quarter, and it has on it that this is you can grow your own toilet paper.
Yeah.
So, and we can help you do that.
Yep.
So, but anyway, those are my thoughts. It is about being prepared and being ready. And so clearly, some of you have found, maybe some of you may have found, hey, you were pretty prepared. Some people found out they weren't very prepared. And then I think that it's very telling. To me, the other thing this did is it showed me how dumb people really are.
Yes.
And I heard things like, I saw everybody else at the grocery store buying toilet paper, so I thought I should buy me some too. And I'm like,
here you go.
Okay. And so I'm like, the whole world has kind of revealed their smartness to me, and I'm like, hey, turns out I have a huge advantage over a lot of people. I found out.
Yep.
So,
Although it's kind of double-edged though, because you look at that and you go, that's so dumb, which it is. But that forces, now you're forced to fall into it, because if you don't fall into it, now you don't have any toilet paper, because everyone else went crazy over the toilet paper. So it sucks you in. You can't get away from it.
Yeah.
Even if you're smart enough to know not to do that, now you're forced into doing it. Yep.
No.
They get you.
Yeah, they do. They always get you.
Yeah. No one knows. That's why they call them they, because no one really knows who it is.
It's better that way, Jake.
Yeah.
Well, if there's any, do you have any other closing thoughts or?
No, I think I got, it's 24/7 coronavirus, so I think...
Can we say corona apocalypse?
Ooh, I think that's a good one. Let's market
No one
that.
else has said
No
that.
one has said it, right? I'm sure.
Yeah, it's been said.
So, yeah, no, it's all over the place. It's consuming everyone's lives, and so it only makes sense that we would discuss, our thoughts on it.
Once again, we appreciate you taking time to tune in to Sabbath Lounge or Shabbat Lounge. And Jake, any last words?
Nope. That's all I got.
All right, sounds good. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time.